Hey, 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 hey. Welcome to episode 231 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. Next week it'll be 230. Oh, I geek out on numbers. I'm sorry. Oh, okay, anyway. Enough of number geeking out, Jason. Get on with the show. Anyway, my guest today, I can't wait to bring her on. She said, and I quote, "I didn't realize how important art was for me until I had to get through some really tough times in my youth. Sometimes when you have no words to express what you are feeling, it's easier to create some form of visual representation of your emotions than to write about them. Art itself is an emotion. Art itself is an emotion. I'll tell you more about my guest today, but first, this.
Today's guest, Kristine Reiner.
So welcome back to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. The story of how I met Kristine is pretty amazing. So let me read it to you and read a little about her. So I was eating with a group of friends at a cafe recently when a trip to the bathroom to wash my hands turned into a profound discovery. I noticed a woman painting on a canvas. The image piqued my interest so much that I had to stop and ask about it. The painter graciously took my question and then pointed across the room to another woman and said, "That's my teacher." So I found my way over and was greeted by a woman who emanated happiness. Looking around, I noticed that she was teaching a group of students to paint with, get this, rose petals instead of paintbrushes. Okay, scrolling down. Nope. Oh, this has never happened before. Okay. Okay. Thank you for the moment. Thank you for your patience with the momentary delay. A few months after this, I met with Kristine over Zoom to prepare for this episode. We talked at length about how art is vital for people to express emotions that are locked deep within them, that are sometimes difficult to express or define otherwise. That the process of creating art can be healing and essential to survival. I'm excited to learn more about the aesthetic pleasure of viewing art with its what it's like teaching art and how vital art can be to the artists as they seek to survive and thrive in the world around them. So that's Kristine's bio, and hopefully she's going to be way more articulate than I was reading that bio. In fact, I know she will be. Please welcome to our Awkwardly Awesome Podcast, Kristine Reiner. Yay!
Hello. Hi, Jason. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Hello, Kristine. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being
Yeah,
here.
I think you did a great job on my bio. That was awesome.
Thank you. So, so the day we met,
Hmm.
you had a group of excited students painting beautiful things with rose petals.
Yeah,
Did
the day we
you
met.
just not now? Were they out of paintbrushes or what happened?
Yeah, the day we met, I think you met me at my busiest class, which was amazing. But it kind of goes back to when I was a senior in college and I needed to come up with an art show for my senior, project. But no, what had happened was I received a large gift of roses from someone that I necessarily didn't want to talk to.
Mm.
So instead of being wasteful and just throwing them away, I decided to paint with them and create art with them because I will admit I am terrible at cleaning out paintbrushes. I always leave that until way too late, and then I have to buy new paintbrushes. So using the rose, or $400 worth of roses that I received, was a lot more economically stable for me in that time than buying two new sets of paintbrushes. So I just kind of started playing around with textures and paint, and it became my style, and it became something that I just felt so drawn to. And I think the response from everybody about it was so powerful because when I did my senior show, I actually highlighted harassment and domestic violence because, like I had previously said, I did not want to have contact with the person who gave me those roses. And I won't get into it too deep, but there is an article in the South Dakota Magazine that kind of details it if anybody's interested.
Hmm. So, so, so often we don't know what to do with unwanted gifts and kind of, do I throw this out? Do I stomp on this? Do I light a fire and burn this? What was your creative process that allowed you to look at the thing you didn't want at all in your space and say, oh, I could do something with this?
Yeah, it was really just kind of like, I love roses. This is something that's a favorite thing of mine. And now I have, this negative emotion attached to it. How do I kind of take that power back and use it for something that I can also enjoy again? Um, and it's really fun because the rose is just like a different kind of tool. Once we break apart the I need the specific tools to be an artist, it feels very freeing of saying, oh no, anything can be an art tool. If I may not have the resources or funds for the resources, I can just use what's around me. And that was really my mindset in that time. Also, I was just, I was very perplexed because I felt like my space had been invaded. Like, this man had got my address and I didn't give it to him. And so $400 worth of roses is a lot of roses. I tried to throw them in the trash can, but they didn't fit. So I took that sign from the universe of like, oh, I'm not done with these yet.
You literally tried to throw them away, but they didn't fit.
Yes, yes. It was quite the day.
Um, there's somehow I'm started thinking about, as you're talking about this whole Plains Indians, Lakota, Lakota and Dakota would use every part of the buffalo, and and something about you using the roses in this way reminds me of that.
I love that you said that. I really do respect, Native American culture and history, and it is so important that we are sustainable in what we're creating, because art supplies are pretty toxic. They are, they're not necessarily always environmentally conscious, and so it's been a practice of mine to try to, make something that is sustainable but also good for the environment. And I was actually, my most recent show that I was asked to participate in was navigating narratives, by there's a museum in Chamberlain, and it was detailing the history of Lewis and Clark as they went through the Teton territory. So I was able to paint a picture about, that Lakota heritage, and just the piece of history about it, and that was so meaningful to me, and so incredibly important, because we should absolutely care about our footprints of what we're leaving behind when we're here. And I think a
Mhm.
great way to create a legacy is to use our artwork to, express that emotion we were feeling while here, whether it's good or bad or heavy or silent. There's always a message to be shared.
I when I think of past great artists, I think of going to the Smithsonian as a kid and seeing Rembrandts and Gauguins and these amazing artists. I often think of the style and the artistry and the technique, but I haven't thought of their art so much in terms of emotions. But really, like Rembrandt's emotion is preserved in his work of art, in his work of art, in his works of art. That's amazing.
Yeah, I recently read a book. I can't remember the title of it, but it really kind of, it gave me some validation as an abstract artist who doesn't always want to follow the rules of, there's a lot of pretentious concepts of what art should be, and how form should take, and what supplies you need. But in this book, it explicitly detailed in a paragraph that something is not technically an art piece unless it provokes emotion in another person while they're viewing it. And like I said, I felt so validated in everything that I've made, because in my past shows, I've highlighted, the struggles of women. I was raised in domestic violence, and so I've had stalkers. I've had uncomfortable situations, and a lot of times women are not encouraged to speak out about it or to share their stories. And so what I've realized with the roses and my senior exhibit, that very first show, um, I'll never forget her name. Her name was Savannah. And she wrote in my guest book about how this show meant so much to her, because over the past year she had just left an abusive relationship. And so seeing my artwork, she completely felt the emotion I was trying to share of my past experiences, and it was just so relatable on different levels. And I don't even know this Savannah. I'm not sure if I've ever met her, but throughout the years, when I question why I'm creating what I'm creating, or if it matters, or maybe I shouldn't show it to someone, I often go back and read that entry in that guest book of her page-long description of just how meaningful it was to see my art that day.
This is so beautiful. You painted art for the show, and you expressed your voice through the art. But then Savannah saw your art and was able to ex- It's like your art kindled her courage to express her voice.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I had an interview a few months ago, and they had a question about, oh, what's your purpose? And at that time, I said, I don't know my purpose. You know, life is a journey, and I'm just here to connect with other people. But I think my purpose is really to be the ultimate hype woman for people who want to be creative,
The
who want,
ultimate what?
like, hype woman. Like, I hype people up. I
Mm.
inspire them to not to not shy away from those talents that they have, because we all have a gift to share with the world. And I've always been drawn to art since I was like in 5th grade. I wrote that I wanted to be an artist when I grew up. And when I graduated high school, I had that little diploma and my mom showed me, and I was like, wow, so okay, this is through and through. I've always wanted to do this. And then when I went to college, people were like, you're insane. Why are you going for art? That's not going to make money. And so for me, the purpose of life is not to make money, but to make connections and to have shared stories. And the best way to do that for me is visually. But I really enjoy giving people the confidence to say, hey, I want to make this. If it's good or bad, I still made it, and I want to make more. So that's kind of how my art classes came to be. I had all these people interested, and I was like, okay, well, a paint and sip, that seems really fun. So my very first class I ever hosted was down in the old, and Sioux Falls natives will remember, but the Jam Art and Supplies. I found such a sanctuary in that place. And so I hosted my first class, and we painted with roses, and everybody just did so well. And the great thing about it is it's an abstract class. It's not, you don't have to make anything perfect. So once you kind of break down those barriers of what you have to be as an artist for people, they start to build that confidence, and they start to see, hey, it's a practice, and it's meant for me, not necessarily the masses. And I think in that we find true healing.
Thinking back on my art classes, in grade school, my I have took photography in high school, but no painting classes in high school. But thinking on my art classes from grade school, I think my art teachers were kind and good people, and I have good memories of them. But somehow I didn't get the impression that I was a painter, or that this is something I should pursue. And talking with you, I'm realizing that that's a loss.
Yeah.
Like yeah, I don't think I will be a professional painter, but I haven't been using painting as a form of expression at all since like sixth grade.
Wow. Well, I hope you feel inspired, but a lot of people have similar stories like that. Like, they there's this concept that you're like a prodigy from birth. And I hate that concept, because just like anything, like any sport, any sort of hand-eye coordination, you have to practice. And so when it comes to art, we're so self-conscious about showing this thing to other people that it's so vulnerable. Like, you have to be willing to take back any feedback, and a lot of times when it comes to artwork, it's subjective, so other people may not see how meaningful it is to you after you worked 8 hours on this piece. But it can really, like, turn people away from art and make them think that they hate artwork or they hate doing that, when really it's just somebody who didn't give them that recognition they were seeking. um and it stunts our confidence. Like, I mean, I've not played basketball since 8th grade, and there's a reason for that. On the same kind of situation of nobody really took the time to encourage me or build me up or show me how to do the form properly or give me a nice safe space where I didn't feel judged. So every class I have, I like to instill like this is a space to just see what happens. It's we're perfectionists in our mind and we expect a pretty little um end result. And the social media kind of makes it a lot harder too, but I think it's important that, just because you're making something, that doesn't have to be something you're absolutely in love with completely. All that matters is whatever you were feeling in that moment, it was released somehow through your creativity. And now you don't have to carry it with you anymore.
First of all, I love the idea that you said this is a space to see what happens. This simply is a space to see what happens. Do you find that people have a fairly easy time putting down the expectations of themselves, or can it be a struggle?
I think it's really difficult. I think especially when you put it next to something like artwork, people feel extremely judged. And usually with that judgment comes shame. Um so I always make a point when I'm teaching that I validate that you are now an artist. Like if anybody questions you, if this is something you enjoy doing, it has no bearing on what it looks like, but you are an artist. You are doing the act of art. And so once they kind of step into that power, I see people just flourish and open up. And I've had so many repeat people come back and paint with me. And so it's kind of like they need that space where they do feel comfortable in working through something or feeling it or hating it, because not everything I make I love. Like there's a ton of artwork that I never want to see again, but it still helped me process what I needed to deal with emotionally.
Um. Oh, could you say more? This is the other thing you said a minute ago. Go that I wanted to follow up on. Could you please say more about once you paint an emotion, it's outside of you. How does that work?
Yeah, well, so here's a little bit of backstory about me. And it's always been my story. It's always been something I've told, but it is heavy. Um Earlier I had mentioned like I am a child from a broken home from divorce. My father's been in prison since I was in 4th grade, and during that time in my life I wasn't protected, and I was sexually assaulted when I was younger. And so I remember the very first time I was brought into therapy about it, and she told me to make a card for my mom. And so that's the only thing I remember. I don't remember talking to her. I don't remember any other part of it, but I remember being so detail oriented on this card, and I could lose myself in that world and not have to focus on the very heavy scary stuff that I was stuck in. And that helped me not internalize the emotion or the fear or everything. And it helped me release it. And so when I see artwork, I don't pre-plan my paintings. I mean, some I do, but mainly it's like if I've had a really tough week or a really hard day, locking myself in the studio for several hours is going to be more therapeutic to me than, calling up my group chat and saying like, "Hey, today sucks." Um, but releasing that emotion, it's it's so easy to bottle it up and say, "I don't want to feel this. I don't want to even acknowledge this." Um, and then there's another cathartic part of taking something so ugly, so scary and dark, and making it beautiful and showing the world, "Hey, I was in this crappy situation, but look at the beauty I created from it, and it doesn't define me. It doesn't make me any less of a person. It doesn't matter, my value. I felt this and I expressed it in this way, and now I have this beautiful visual to show you that that was a really hard time in my life. And yeah, it is kind of tough. There are some paintings where I'm like, I need this out of my view because it reminds me of that situation. And other people are like, wow, this is so gorgeous. I love it so much. And I'm like, thank you. Never show it to me again.
Um, um, there's so many layers to the. So this also brings up the viewer. Oftentimes, especially if it's more of a lay person who hasn't gone to school for art and doesn't know art history and art appreciation and stuff, the common experience is looking at a painting and maybe not getting it, not maybe part of that thought is based on fear. Oh my gosh, I don't get this. What should I say? And we start to spin out. What is, if we get in that spot? What is a good question to ask the artist, or how can we affirm them? What should we do next?
Yeah, can I start with what you should never say to an artist? Like,
Okay.
never say, "Oh, I could do that." Like, that's like I've had, being in the Midwest, we're not necessarily the most art appreciative kind of planes, but it's growing. It's growing a lot, and we've created far more spaces where artists can share who they are and what they're doing. I think some people have this idea of art, and you need to, create several own masters and replicate them perfectly, and then you're an artist. You need to have a gallery show, and then you're an artist. But if you see a piece of artwork and you feel a deep connection to it, and you're not sure why, and you just don't understand why you like it, it's always it would it would it would always be beneficial to try to seek out that artist. Especially with social media, it's so easy to kind of look up people, or see why they started creating, or maybe see other works they have, and really learn what their intention was about that piece. I mean, for us artists, we're not writers all the time. We're not always happy to divulge that vulnerability about every detail of why this painting means that, but some do, and the artists that I really look up to, or feel inspired by, usually have an awareness to bring about a situation or a life experience they've had. So I think it kind of boils down to, what your personal reference is and what you personally enjoy, and seeking that out. But anybody who had the confidence to submit artwork into a show and then hang it is extremely, just so important to the whole society, because we need people who inspire us to share that vulnerability and to be open to saying, I made this. It's not going to be for everybody, but there are maybe 1 to 2 people who really need to see that message, and that could be life changing for that 1 to 2 people. And to me, that's
Mm.
enough. When I was first starting out, I I really struggled with my confidence, and it's like my own internal voice was like, maybe the whole world doesn't love this, but 1 or 2 people somewhere on this planet are going to absolutely fall in love with that creation. You just have to find them. And so I want to thank social media for making it 10 times easier because, you know, in that journey, I have been published internationally. I've been in British Vogue and Vanity Fair and Harper's Bazaar. During COVID, my
Ooh.
art was, you know, it kind of had its own little viral moment, and people were far more um, receptive to the message I was trying to share. And of course, there's always that 3D element of, wow, that was made with a rose. How did she do that? So it kind of breaks the stigma of, oh, you have to pay for the most expensive art supplies, you need the best paint, because those are barriers to a lot of people. And the stigma of like, oh, okay, I can't afford this $200 set of paint to make this little butterfly picture that I want to make. You know, it limits our confidence, and it makes us think, oh, okay, maybe that's just not for me. I'll do something different. And then that little artist in us kind of shrinks and they die down a bit. But I like to share that anybody anywhere can be an artist. You just have to find, you know, what excites you about the mediums.
So a side note, Kristine, like, we've zoomed, we've talked, and you just mentioned in passing British Vogue Vanity Fair Harper's Bazaar, like it's sunny out, British Vogue Harper's Bazaar Vanity Fair. What? What?
Yeah, it's, you know, I guess I just try not to attach my validation to other people being excited about my art, because for me, then it's like, oh, this new piece I made wasn't as well recepted, and so now I don't feel as much as an artist. But yes, it was very cool. I guess, yeah, I've talked to you probably several times, and I've never
Yeah.
mentioned it. But
No.
I got an email one day and I thought it was scam. I thought it was a scam. So I just kept responding in COVID. I was like, oh, sure, cool. You're going to publish my art. That's sure you are. Yeah, here's some photos. Here's my artist statement. And actually, yeah, so British Vogue wrote my first like official artist statement for me. But yeah, I'm internationally known, and I was published in several magazines, and then I've been published in, you know, stateside as well. I've been on multiple podcasts and other interviews, but I've taken all that, and you know, that confidence I have, that validation and that authority that's come with that, I want to give to other local creatives. And so I've started
Mm.
my own magazine, which I don't know if you know about this either, Jason.
No.
But I publish my own art magazine that highlights creatives, and they can submit on my website anytime they want. They just have to upload, you know, a few questions, their bio, and some pictures. But I'm releasing my second issue here coming next month, and the magazine is called Kama, Kama. And so yeah, if you're a creative and you want to get your art out there and be published, you know, it really brings that authority of like, look, I did this. Hey mom, like I'm published. And then it's something
K
to, you
K
know,
K
share.
KAMA.com.
So it's on my website at KristineReiner.com / KAMA. And so that should take you to it, so you can submit to be featured.
I mean, we're going to get off the subject soon here. But like, it begs the question: how did British Vogue see your artwork?
Social media. So just posting my content online really helped me. And then kind of like I said, during COVID, we were all locked in. And so the magnifying glasses of finding artists online really helped me. I got a lot more views, a lot more engagement, and just a lot more validation of, hey, people like my stuff. Um, because sometimes you have to cast the net wider than just your 10-mile radius. I mean, Not a lot of South
Sometimes you
Dakotans.
have to cast in that wire thing into my way.
Yeah, not a lot of South Dakotans were digging what I was making. They like their landscape portraiture of nature, and I appreciate that as well. But I am an abstract artist, and it's not for everybody very much.
Did you at any point have a temptation like, oh, I should do realism because because it's what sells,
Well,
because it's what's known, because it's what's popular. Did you ever have that temptation?
I did. Well, I wouldn't say it's a temptation. I did get commission requests. So here's one of my vulnerable moments as an artist. Somebody commissioned me to do a portrait of a family, and doing one portrait is fine, but I had to do 3 people, fresh out of school, and I am more abstract. Like, I went to college with phenomenal portrait like artists, but this person wanted me to do it, and I was like, okay, I'll try. I think I painted and repainted that painting 30 times. Like, I just
Three,
my,
3-0.
yeah, my perfectionism on just the expectation of what somebody might think about that painting, it really messed with my process. And in that moment, I realized that I am not a commission artist. I am very much not somebody who can create when an order is submitted. I need to have an emotional connection to it, and I need to have just the want and the drive to create that, because like I said, I don't make art to make money. I don't make art to be famous. I make art to release what I'm feeling, because that's been the only successful therapy that I found for me. I mean, I'm not a person who likes to ask for help or talk about my problems. My family can attest to that. I kind of just get really quiet, and that's how they know something's wrong. But yeah, I remember I would wake up, I'd look at the painting, and I just hate it. I would hate it so much, and I would paint over it. Like, it was completed probably 5 different times, but I couldn't stop. And so then I think it took me way longer than it should have to complete it, and that was when I was like, okay, I am not a commission artist. I will always outsource to people who do that. um but it's not for me. And I think as an artist, so many people want you to, oh, can you make my dog? Can you make a picture of my dog? Or can you do this? And you have to really be sure of who you are in your style. Like, that's one thing I think going to college for my artwork, because I don't truly believe you need an education to be an artist. If you have that creative passion, let it out. But in art school, I was blessed with those resources to sit there and say, what what is my favorite thing to create, and how do I enjoy creating it? And so
Oh my gosh, what
after
a
that,
question.
yeah, after that pattern, you kind of, that's how you develop your style. And there's so much pressure to be perfect or to have it look a certain way, and that's not what art should be. It should be about emotion and invoking that in people and making them think more about that creation, and diving in a little deeper than just walking by, seeing something, and then forgetting it.
Um, the delay response. This is Christina's publication.
Thank
That
you.
celebrates artists. So
Yeah.
the little delay response. I typed it out, but then I'm like, oh, I didn't post that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody is welcome to post. I've got you know, poetry writers, photographers, um acrylic painters. It's been so great to put other creatives on a platform where other people can appreciate them and kind of see, hey, there is so much local talent around us. You don't just have to love Rothko or the greats who you've been told to like. you can also support local art in this very day and age.
That's wonderful. Your story of painting the portraits, and I get the feeling that you were gritting your teeth a lot during that time and just miserable. There's a temptation in any career to do what makes the money, to do what is, to do it the traditional way, not to rock the boat. What would you say to people who are struggling under the weight of that temptation?
It's a process, and I think for everybody to find their light in that tunnel is going to be different.
Mm.
And like you said, I had some really deep thoughts and conversations of like, wow, I'm not even an artist, because during that time I also, my friends in a group chat were making fun of my painting. And so I saw that as well, and I was like, wow, even the people who like are supposed to be my friends don't think like
Mm.
I'm worthy of being an artist. And so it can really be debilitating, but I think if you're true in why your passion is there and why you want to create, you don't need to seek that validation from anybody. You don't even need validation from me. You know, I love every form of art and I'm going to give it to you, but all that matters at the end of the day is you enjoy doing that creation and you feel good about what you've made. That's all you need. And so that process took me, it took me probably a year to get to that point of confidence of like, no matter what happens, people are still going to talk their smack because it might not be their style. And I don't have to listen. I don't have to care. And so it's really freeing to just not be seeking that validation from others.
You talk a lot about you paint to express emotion. What 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 has been inspiring your paintings in the last few weeks?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because I'm an open book about what I'm going through. I think as an artist it's needed to share. And in the past few weeks, my son was taken from me. He's out of state and I haven't seen him in 34 days. And I'm fighting 3 legal battles to get him back and to see him again. But that's been, my deepest, darkest time. And right now I have a painting that I'm raffling to help pay for legal fees, and it's at Good Natured. I don't have a picture of it right now, but it's one of the most recent paintings that I've made that has invoked that emotion I keep talking about. Because when you see something online and you're inspired about it and you want to make it, that's cool, that's great, but it doesn't necessarily have a lot of feeling put into it. But my friend Shannon Ward, she's been a really great pillar for me during this time, and I've been talking to her about a lot. And she inspired me to kind of lock myself away in my studio and do what I do best and see what happens. And I think without that, I would not be as put together as I am right now. I would still be carrying so much weight and questioning so many things. But to put it on a piece of canvas, like, this happened to me, I'm currently going through this, and then just put it out of my mind, has been really helpful. So that piece, it's one of my favorite pieces currently. It's called Toxic and is featuring 2 roses. One is like featured here, and then the other one's falling down. And there's, a black background, and then there's metallic paint around it. And I think it's just to show that in life you need balance. there's just like yin and yang. There's going to be dark with the light, and sometimes the light is going to be the smaller part of that darkness. And that's where I'm at right now. I like to say life is a wave, and I'm currently flowing through that process as best as I can. But it's been really challenging. My son is the light of my life. I think I told you that when we met. And so,
Oh yeah, yeah. We talked for like 7 minutes, and
mhm.
I don't know how long. And you talked about how much somebody your joy or brings your joy.
And he, he's such a little creative. He's only 2, and I've always painted with him. Like, I'm that crazy parent. I'll give him a paint marker and I'll let him just go and color on the walls because they're all white and I'm a mural artist, so we're gonna fix it anyways. So in that time, he's actually left me so many paintings and so many drawings on my wall that I can look back to and know, like, okay, this is just this moment. It's not forever. This is temporary. But he's with me. Like, he's always with me, and I love that at such a young age, he's had art fostered for him, and that creativity is just unlimited. Like, he's got so many resources around him. I can't wait to see what he makes as he continues growing. Um, I'm pretty sure he's made more paintings than me at this point. Like, he all art supplies are now shared, so I've gotten used to that. And he'll see something and he'll be like, "Mom, open it." And then he'll just go to town, and it's really amazing. And so to see that confidence in a 2-year-old, I'm never going to let
Mm.
anybody kind of extinguish that fire in him, because I think at such a young age so many people are looking for people to be excited about their artwork, and that one teacher might say, "Oh, that's not art." And that really cripples people. It cripples their confidence, and it makes them really question, "Oh yeah, I'm not an artist." And I would really like to break that stigma of, like, "Oh, okay, that person didn't like my art. Somebody else will," you know?
What I'm getting that no other person ever has the authority to say that any one of us is not an artist. I mean, they can say, I'm not your art doesn't appeal to me, but how do they know that we're not an artist?
Exactly. I mean, and if I'm sure you've talked to many creatives, like, you'll see the passion in somebody's eyes when they talk about their paintings or something that they made. And it's just, I love that feeling. I love being in that moment, being that person who can say, "Wow, I want to see more of your art. I want to see you create more." I want this to be an avenue where you feel safe in and inspired.
And someone might be listening and going, "Oh, you have no idea, Kristine. I've worked this other job that's as far away from creating art as could be. I'm just not an artist." But but when we were zooming, you mentioned Bob Ross's background.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What,
Um
was he born? Was he always an artist?
No, actually, Bob Ross, he was a sergeant in the military. So the happy little trees and the calm voice, that is not how he started. He started having to, be that sergeant, yelling at people, screaming at people. And I think he realized at a point in his life that's not what he wanted to do. He wanted to be soft, and he wanted to be gentle, and he wanted to share those passions. And I mean, look at his legacy, the joy of painting. He inspired so many people that this accident, this mistake, it's not a mistake, it's a happy little tree, it's a happy little accident. We don't have to
Mm.
put so much weight on the things that we aren't proud of, or the things that aren't perfect. But yeah, I think for a lot of people, they're going to be like, "What, Bob Ross? He was wow," compared to the nice, soft, gentle man. And I think, our perception of we need to be one thing in our life is kind of silly, because we're always ever changing, we're always ever evolving, our perspectives always ever growing. And so look at all of the people who you could just say Bob Ross's name and they may have never even painted before, but they know and they get it, and they have such a warm reception to him. As opposed to Gordon Ramsay, who comes across with that like intense, shameful, judgmental kind of attitude. And so it's like creating that safe space is so important when we are fostering creativity. And I mean, Bob Ross his sons have gone on to kind of carry on his legacy and teach artwork as well.
Very, very, very inspiring. When we talked, you said something like, "You can't heal in silence. You can't heal shut away." Could you say more about that idea?
Yeah, I believe what we were talking, it was kind of going back to like the domestic violence I had experienced as a child, and like some sexual assault issues. And I think for women as well as men, it's very prominent, and it's very scary to talk about those things. But once you add that art element of like, I don't have to say this sentence that re-triggers me or re-traumatizes me, but I can create a picture that makes me feel like I'm in my safe zone or my space. And I remember we talked on our last Zoom, and you go, why didn't, like, you're going through so much, why didn't you just blow me off? It's just the podcast right now. And for me, I can't deny what my current situation is and still expect me to be healing from it or to be aware of it. Otherwise, then I'm just stuffing it down. And so I can't heal in silence. I can't keep carrying the things that hurt me without sharing them with the people I love. And once I have opened up and I have shared those things, it starts out by, oh, hey, this is that painting I made. This is its title. I made it because I was going through a domestic violence situation, and I haven't felt safe in my environment for a really long time. And opening that door, it's caused so many other doors and other people to open and reach out to me and say, oh my God, Kristine, my partner cheated on me as well, and I'm also dealing with this. Like, how do you get through it? How did you feel vulnerable enough to come and say it so publicly? And at this point in my life, in my 30s, I'm either going to say it or nobody's going to know about it. And so I want you to know why I create what I create. I want you to know the meaning behind it, the depth, the feeling, the emotion, because it's me. And this is my story. And I've been silenced my whole life about, the trauma I've dealt with. And I don't think people understand that if you don't speak about the trauma, you're gonna reach to points where you're trying to drown away that trauma. May it be with, drugs and alcohol or something that kind of numbs that pain. Because again, you're carrying that pain inside of you, pretending like it didn't happen to you. When we're all here to connect with other humans and share exactly like, this is my experience. Oh, you have a relatable experience. Wow, somebody else gets it. I'm not alone in that. And I've really found that with my artwork. And that's kind of why I say it's my therapy that's been healing. The most successful healing therapy I have, because we can feel really isolated when we're going through that darkness of like, wow, this sucks a lot. Nobody gets what I'm feeling. Nobody is saying the right words. I don't want to hear, this advice, or I don't want to talk to anybody right now. But sometimes just going to a safe community space and painting with someone for an hour and not saying anything has healed me so much more than trying to talk to a therapist about, my childhood. Not to say that that's discounted in any way, but a lot of us, we need different methods on how we process things emotionally.
What would you say to someone who might be watching this right now and is in a really really dark place and just doesn't know what to do next, doesn't know how to express the hurt and the confusion and the overwhelm.
Yeah. The world needs you. The world needs you to create and to be a part of it. I mean, if you think about several great artists, I'll just like Mac Miller for those, maybe who are closer in my age range, but he sang about his issues with addiction. Or Macklemore. Macklemore is one of my favorite creatives. He's constantly like, I have this issue, it's a problem in my life, but I'm still going to keep creating. I'm going to spend those 10,000 hours to find my healing and my peace.
I'm going to spend those 10,000 hours to find my healing and my peace.
Because you deserve it. You do. And something so beautiful comes from that when you feel so completely in yourself that you're willing to share that vulnerability with the world. I mean, I'm amazed that I inspire anybody, honestly. Like I'm just doing what I enjoy doing, and I think the world needs more support in that. So if you think that your art doesn't matter, or you don't need to be speaking on a topic, just ignore that voice in your head that's trying to fill you with doubt, because I promise you, you're going to change somebody's life.
You said, I promise you, you're going to change somebody's life. It may be thousands of millions of people. I mean, none of us really know how our creations are going to be received, or who's going to be affected.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have to put a timeline on everything, and so many people are, in their 40s or 50s or 60s, and they're starting painting, and they just come alive in it, and they bloom, and it's just that age concept, or that mentality of I need to do this and this before I'm technically an artist. I really like to break that stigma. Like, just if you like drawing, or you're interested in nail art video or something, like, it doesn't matter how silly the world makes it seem or how insignificant. If it matters to you, you should pour into that.
If it matters to you, you should pour into it. This has been so inspiring, Kristine. Thank you so much. As wrapping up, I'll ask you a question I asked just about every guest. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you? What does doing your imperfect best mean to you? To me, it means I envision the best I want for my life and to give to other people, and I go for that. But then obstacles, challenges, mistakes, what have you comes up, and instead of using that as a reason to stop or to say I'm not good enough or something like that, I try to learn from all that and once again move forward. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Kristine Reiner?
I'm living my imperfect best right now. I am going through one of the hardest times that I have in my adult life. But if I sit there and I let it debilitate me and eat me alive every day, and I sit here being defeated, I'm not going to ever thrive, and I'm not going to create the space and the environment my son needs to grow up with the future I've envisioned for him. So doing my imperfect best is taking it day by day. Not every day I'm going to feel inspired to make 3 paintings, and that's fine. Having an expectation on ourselves can sometimes kill our creativity. If there is a day where you need to lay in bed because you are so depressed, take the day to lay in bed. You deserve it. This world is really hard. But knowing that those days when you're inspired, that you invest in your creativity and you take an hour or two to see what happens in that time and allow yourself just the space to be what you want to be. um it's it's the best you can do, and every day, we can only try our best to be better. None of us are perfect. We are all human, and I don't think it's fair to put such rough expectations on something that should be as freeing as creativity.
Hmm. It's amazing. It's amazing answer. Thank you. Thank you for all you do. Thanks for being just a stamp for creativity. The and a stamp for everyone's voice. In a stamp specifically. Oh, I'm not even going. You are a great stand for women and women's voice, but you are a stand for everyone. Thank you for doing what you do, Kristine.
Well, thank you, Jason. Like, I think it's just so wild how we randomly met on a
Yeah.
really busy Saturday at a cafe, and now, I've run into you several times, and I'm really glad that, we've kindled this friendship, because I'm happy to have a platform to share who I am. And you're creating that, and you're giving people a space to tell their stories. And I think that's so powerful. So thank you so much for your time and sharing, a little bit about me with the world. And I hope that other people feel inspired enough to actually listen to their passions and dive in a little
Mm,
bit, even when it's scary.
mm. Even when it's scary. So Christine, on a much more mundane note, but important, please. I'm going to end the episode now, but please stay on. It takes a little bit for everything to unload, okay?
Okay,
Everything to upload. Oh, okay.
that's perfect.
Cool. So see you in a sec. And for the rest of you tuning in, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching this 10 or 25 years from now, if you're watching it 25 years from now, maybe maybe call us and let us know how things are in 25 years. That would be kind of fun. But anyway, anyway, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for thinking about Christine's phenomenal message. And please comment. Add joy to the comments if you want. Your comments benefit us as creators, and they benefit the other viewers. So, and most of all, thanks for being you. Next week, tune in when I'll have another awkwardly awesome podcast guest or multiple guests on. Until then, thanks for being you. You are the best. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.